What's going on there, emissaries? Gores here, giving you guys another duel replay. This is my Jinzo Dad deck. The deck is extremely explosive. It relies on Future Fusion and Overload Fusion to be able to OTK, or potentially Dark Arm Dragon, and abuses Jinzo Returner. Now, I wanted to showcase you guys this replay, just so that you guys can see how explosive the deck is, and how insane the deck can be. So, without further ado, let's get into this replay. This is against Vayu Turbo. So, we start off the game, we start off with Gold Sark into Future Fusion, set Dekoichi pass. Our opponent sets Raikou here. They have Raikou and Bottomless set. So we go ahead and we normal summon out the Machina Gear Frame. Then we flip our Dekoichi to let us draw another card. Now, the benefit here is that we're going to go ahead and summon back our Fortress, and they're going to Bottomless, and we're really not going to care too much, because if we resolve Future Fusion, we basically win. So we swing into the face down, it is Raikou, they go ahead and pop the Dekoichi, and then they get to mill 3. So we pass it on back to them. They draw D-Prison for turn. So they have Heavy Storm, D-Prison, and Dark Greffer in hand. They summon the Greffer, use its effect to slap a Sirocco in the graveyard, then banish the Vayu that they milled off the Raikou with the Sirocco to summon out Armed Wing. Then they're going to swing into us for 500 damage, and then attack us directly with Dark Greffer. So they go ahead and they set the trap card and pass. Now we don't care about trap cards because we're playing Jinzo Dad. So we get to add the Future Fusion to hand. Next up, we activate the Future Fusion, reveal Chimera Tech over Dragon, sending all of our machines, except in this replay, since we have a Dark Monster already in our graveyard, we have the Dekoichi here. We want to make sure we can summon Dark Arm Dragon and try to not abuse the Overload Fusion too much here, because depending on what their set card is, it could be devastating for us. It could be something like Book of Moon. So we send the 2 Returners and 2 Jinzos, because that's all we need to kill our opponent. So we summon back both Jinzos, and now we have exactly 3 Darks in our graveyard. Our opponent double checks just to make sure. And then the next thing that's going to happen here is we're going to banish a Dark, target the set card, pop it with the Dark Arm Dragon. Then we're going to banish our Jinzo Returner again, pop the Armed Wing. We don't need to pop the Greffer to kill them here, so we keep the Dekoichi in grave in case they have something that can get them out of this. We go ahead, we discard the Machina Force to summon out the Machina Fortress, and our opponent scoops it up. So now we go into game 2. Now I kind of blunder here in game 2. I definitely could have just, you'll see where I blunder. I definitely could have just Lightning Vortexed and called it a day here, because we do side 3 in this deck, just to be able to blow it out when we're going second. So our opponent opens fairly good. They open Card Trooper, Raikou, Bottomless, Rhoda, Heavy Storm, Sirocco. So pretty solid opening here. We draw Raikou. We activate Gold Sark to go ahead and banish the Future Fusion. Then we set the limiter removal to try and bait them into using Raikou on the set card. Unfortunately, this player is very good. This player is pretty known on the DB ladder for being a pretty good Vayu Turbo player. So they mill 3, they mill the Armageddon Knight, they mill the Dark Arm Dragon, and then they normal summon Card Trooper. Now, on our next turn, that's probably where we should have Lightning Vortex, just because they could OTK if they had Greffer or if they had Armageddon Knight, and I just didn't really think about that when I was playing. So we draw another Machina Force here. I'm feeling pretty confident that he can't OTK. Drops the Heavy Storm, popping their Bottomless Trap Hole, and then they just get to pop off from here. They get to just add the Armageddon Knight, they mill 3 with the Card Trooper. They don't hit anything, but it doesn't matter because they had the Sirocco in hand for Dark Greffer. Then they use Greffer to send a Vayu, and then they normal summon Armageddon Knight, and that's just going to be too much for us to come back from. So we go into Game 3. Game 3 is probably a little bit of luck, but the deck is super consistent when it comes to the fact that, yes, the cards that we are playing are limited, but we play multiple limited cards that can just outright win us the game. So we open fairly well. We open Cyber Dragon, Black Salvo, Gear Frame, Force, Limiter Removal, Jinzo. So we normal summon out the Gear Frame. We go ahead and we add ourselves a Machina Fortress, and then we pass it back to our opponent. Our opponent summons Gale and cuts our Gear Frame in half, and then swings over the Gear Frame. And then they go ahead and they set 2 cards. It's Bottomless Dust Tornado pass here. And we're like, all right, cool. Even if they Bottomless the Cyber Dragon here, we can still kind of win because we drew the second Cyber Dragon. So we summon out Cyber Dragon. We tribute summon Jinzo. We go ahead, we discard the other Cyber Dragon and Fortress to summon itself back. We go into battle phase, damage step. We activate the limiter removal. That's going to boost Jinzo up to 4,800 and Fortress up to 5,000 for a total of 9,800. Meaning even if Gale was 1,700, we were still getting in the win here. So it was a great game, super good deck. So let's get into the deck, and you guys can kind of see what I'm playing and what I'm working with here. So here's the deck. I'm definitely going to post the export link down in the description box as usual for you guys. The deck is super fun to play. It's very much so a blowout OTK deck, and that's just how it works. So let's just get into the ratios. We're playing 3 Black Salvo in the deck, as well as 3 Decoichi for our target. So Black Salvo, just when it's summoned, we get to summon back Decoichi, and then it lets us go into any level 7 synchro. So sometimes, before we start our OTK, like let's say we opened Decoichi, and we set Decoichi, they swing into it, we draw a card. We can go normal summon Black Salvo, bring back Decoichi, synchro into Black Rose, blow up the board, and then go Future Fusion, Limiter, Future Fusion, Dark Armed, Future Fusion, Overload Fusion. Like, there's so much that we can combo with it. Like, pretty much Future Fusion is the name of the deck. If we open Future Fusion and, like, even Machina Force, we can OTK. If we open Future Fusion and Dark Armed, we can OTK. Future Fusion and Gear Frame, we can OTK. As long as we see this card, we can OTK. And we have 3 copies of it thanks to our Gold Sark. So next up, we are playing the 1 Card Trooper. It's just a solid machine monster that lets us mill, and sometimes we don't find the Future Fusion. So the next strategy is to mill, and then hopefully Overload Fusion can blow them out. Or we can mill enough Darks to summon Dad, or just try to abuse the Black Salvo. Then we have 2 Cyber Dragon, 1 Dark Arm Dragon, 1 Gores, shout out to the MVP, 3 Jinzo, 3 Jinzo Returner. Now this is like our main strategy here, right? Because we get to send our Jinzo Returner and then summon back our Jinzo, which locks a lot of decks out. Like Black Wings is a trap heavy deck, Glad Beast is a trap heavy deck. All these trap heavy decks that are out in the format right now just kind of auto lose to Jinzo. And then we are playing 3 Machina Force because this is a heavy mill deck. So we're going to be milling our fortresses quite frequently. So to be able to just put the Machina Fortress in grave and then summon it back off Machina Force is pretty solid. On top of that, it is a machine for us to be able to Future Fusion and put more copies of machine monsters in our graveyard so that we can just pop off from there with the Overload Fusion and just absolutely blow them out. Like if we open 2 Force Future Fusion, that's also an OTK because we get to summon back 3 Jinzos and 2 Fortresses, so that OTKs through a lot of boards. Next up, we do have the 3 Fortress and 3 Gear Frame. No Peacekeeper in this deck. We are already running so many normal summons between the Raikos, the Decoichis, and the Salvos. Fortress just feels like, or Gear Frame just feels like it's what we need. We don't really need Peacekeeper in this deck, just because our main goal is to just hit Future Fusion and just pop off from there. There are some variants that play Magical Stone Excavation in case they mill their Future Fusion, but that's like up to players' preference from there. Next up, we have 3 Raiko, 1 Tragodia, 1 Future Fusion, and then because we are an OTK deck, we are running 1 True Nade and the 1 Heavy Storm, as well as the 1 MST to try and get as much back row removal as we can. We are also playing Return from the Different Dimension because we are going to be banishing our Darks with Dark Arm Dragon. We're going to be banishing them with Overload Fusion, so this kind of lets us also push into an OTK. If we can go Future Fusion, flip the Return from the Different Dimension on the follow-up of us activating Overload Fusion, and then just be able to really blow them out in case they have an answer for our Chimera tech. But you could replace this with Magical Stone Excavation. It'll do just about the same thing. And then we have our Solemn Judgment. Solemn Judgment is, again, we are an OTK deck. We need to resolve certain things, so Solemn Judgment is a must. For the side deck, we're on 2 Fossil Dyna, Lila for our spell and trap card removal, Spell Canceller because against certain decks this is just a blowout, like for example Dragon Turbo. If we go first against them and we can summon Fortress, we can just tribute summon our Spell Canceller and then lock Dragon Turbo completely out of the game. We're on 3 Lightning Vortex for when we are forced to go second so that we can break a board without having to really put any effort into it and then be able to just blow them out with Future Fusion. And then, of course, we have the 3 Soul Release for when we're playing against decks like Vayu Turbo, Lightsworn, etc., to be able to just banish as many cards as possible from their graveyard to increase our grind potential against decks like that. And then 2 Light Imprisoning Mirror because our hardest matchup is, in fact, Lightsworn because they have Lilas, they have Raikos. It's really hard for us to kind of push through sometimes. So Light Imprisoning Mirror helps us get through them. And then 2 Royal Decree for those trap matchups. Yes, we are on Jinzo, but sometimes Jinzo is not enough. If they can establish set 4 pass on us, we really don't want to just be activating Future Fusion all, lackadaisical. So we do have the 2 Royal Decree. And then for the extra deck, we're on 2 Chimera Tech Fortress and 2 Chimera Tech Overdragon. This is kind of just like a personal preference for me because sometimes we don't see this card fast enough and we have to activate the Future Fusion, and maybe it's a grind game, so I do like playing 2. You can opt to cut it for another level 5 Synchro or Mistworm if you'd like. And then 2 Chimera Tech for when we go into our Machina matchups and our Gadget matchups. And then the rest of the extra deck is pretty standard, just level 7s for us to be able to synchro with the Koichi, level 8s with Black Salvo and Cyber Dragon. Tragodia helps us snatch monsters. You can also opt to play Mind Control in this deck. Definitely mess around with the ratios. The deck's super fun, very flexible. So if you guys like content like this, remember I'm producing EDISON content as much as I physically can. Thank you guys so much for getting us up to 1,500 subscribers again. You guys are amazing. I cannot say that enough. I love you guys. I love making content. So thank you guys so much for checking out this deck profile. Remember, the deck will be in the description box down below. And this is Gores signing off.